Welcome to The Debate. Today we're diving into the complex and I'd say rapidly evolving world of decentralized finance. Specifically, we're going to focus on DeFi aggregators. Now, our central question is this. Are DeFi aggregators really an essential tool for, safely and profitably navigating DeFi? Or do they actually introduce additional layers of risk and complexity that, well, might outweigh their convenience? My position is that these aggregators are a crucial evolution, championing efficiency and optimized access in what's often a pretty intricate landscape.
hmm And I'll be presenting the counterpoint. While the convenience of these tools is, undeniable, I'll argue that they often obscure significant underlying risks and, look, in some cases, introduce entirely new vulnerabilities that users might not fully appreciate. This makes that perceived safety and profitability, well, maybe far more tenuous than it first appears.
Right. So DeFi aggregators, I believe, represent a crucial evolution in how users engage with decentralized finance. They fundamentally simplify and optimize the whole experience. Take, for instance, a platform like Matcha, which is a leading aggregator. It leverages 0x API technology, that's a protocol for decentralized exchange, to simultaneously check, I believe it's 23 decentralized exchanges or DEXs to find the absolute best rates.
23, yeah.
Yeah, 23. So this intelligent routing isn't just about convenience. It fundamentally shifts the power dynamic. It democratizes access to what used to be institutional-grade liquidity aggregation, making it available for every individual user. And it ensures trades are executed without hidden fees, trading limits, or deposit requirements. This directly gets at one of DeFi's biggest frustrations, just finding optimal liquidity efficiently. And beyond just trading, these aggregators, especially when they leverage layer 2 solutions like Arbitrum, which are scaling solutions designed to increase transaction speed and cut costs by processing transactions off-chain, well, they can drastically mitigate those notoriously high gas fees on the Ethereum network. This efficiency isn't just about cost savings, though. It makes lucrative activities like yield farming and staking, which, let's be honest, often offer rewards much greater on average than traditional investments, far more accessible and, frankly, manageable. It's about creating a more profitable and user-friendly environment, allowing users to safely use self-custodial wallets like a Tangem or Ledger while benefiting from these optimizations. The value proposition seems pretty clear to me. Superior performance, streamlined user experience. Why would anyone still manually scour multiple DEXs?
Well, I see the appeal of that perspective, I really do, particularly the promise of efficiency. But we have to acknowledge that DeFi aggregators are built upon what is already a niche and inherently risky phenomenon. Adding yet another layer of abstraction, the aggregator itself, onto this complex ecosystem, well, it often exacerbates rather than alleviates these dangers. I mean, the brutal reality of DeFi's history is that every layer added presents a new attack surface. We've seen a concerning shift towards exploiting off-chain vulnerabilities, like compromising users' private keys. And self-custodial wallets like Tangem or Ledger are susceptible to this if they're not perfectly secured. Aggregators, just by their design, don't eliminate the fundamental technical risks. You still have the underlying open-source smart contracts, the blockchain network dependencies, potential Oracle failures where, external data feeds mess up, or cross-chain bridge exploits. In fact, these bridges, which let assets move between different blockchains, they alone accumulated over, USD 1.3 billion in losses in 2022, largely due to their complex attack vectors. That kind of track record raises serious questions about overall safety. Furthermore, there's the inherent anonymity or pseudonymity of DeFi. Even when you're using a self-custodial wallet, it contributes to significant risks of MLTF, that's money laundering and terrorist financing, just because of the absence of robust AML CFT controls. And this leaves users with severely limited recourse if there's fraud or theft, regardless of how optimized or slick their interface might seem.
Quarterback. The center, I understand your concern that these layers might complicate things further, But I'd argue that aggregators, especially when you pair them with layer 2 solutions like Arbitrum, are actually designed to untangle that complexity. They aim to resolve critical pain points in user experience and, importantly, cost efficiency. Arbitrum, as an L2 scaling solution, it drastically improves transaction speed, reduces costs, because it processes transactions off-chain, making the whole interaction much more practical. So when an aggregator like Matcha leverages that kind of technology, users aren't just getting the best prices by checking those 23 DEXs simultaneously, they're doing it while minimizing the, frankly, punitive gas fees that once really plagued Ethereum.
This combination creates, I think, a genuinely seamless and economically viable DeFi experience. For someone using a self-custodial wallet, right, they keep control of their private keys, which is absolutely paramount, and the aggregator simply acts as an intelligent router for their transactions. It's not taking custody of their funds. This, to me, represents a significant step forward. It makes DeFi both profitable and, well, reasonably safe. It proves that smart engineering can solve real-world problems for users who want to engage with these powerful financial tools without needing to be, blockchain developers themselves.
Okay, while the scalability benefits of L2s like Arbitrum are clear, I can't agree that this convenience truly mitigates the systemic vulnerabilities. You're essentially building efficiency on a foundation that still has these critical points of failure. L2s, for all their benefits, fundamentally, they rely on the underlying layer 1 blockchain for final settlement and security. And that reliance can also introduce further ICT risks, information and communication technology risks, vulnerabilities in the systems managing these transactions. Disruptions to the underlying L1 can cascade, they can impact L2s, and consequently any DeFi protocols or aggregators deployed on them. Plus, the interoperability that's often necessary for L2 solutions frequently requires using cross-chain bridges, which, as we already touched on, are these complex attack vectors and may more likely contain bugs or vulnerabilities. I mean, we saw over $1 billion lost to bridge exploits in just 1 year.
Right, a sobering figure.
Exactly. So relying on an aggregator means trusting an additional layer of smart contracts, and each one is a potential point of failure. And while you emphasize self-custody, its security is, at the end of the day, only as strong as the user's own operational practices. Recent attacks have shown a clear trend towards exploiting off-chain vulnerabilities. An aggregator just adds another potential avenue for an attacker, even if it's maybe the interface rather than the core wallet itself. This doesn't inherently make it safer, it just adds another component you have to trust in the chain, another potential target.
Okay, building on your point about user experience, though, it's this simplified access that really unlocks the potential for profit maximization. The core value of a DeFi aggregator is precisely that: intelligent optimization for maximizing returns. These platforms enable users to automatically discover and then capitalize on the best yield opportunities across various protocols, whether that's through lending, borrowing, or staking. Consider liquid staking, for example. Users can stake their crypto, earn rewards, and in return, they get a liquid staking token, an LST, which they can then potentially reinvest elsewhere to amplify their returns. Aggregators abstract away the, frankly, immense complexity of manually comparing countless protocols, their variable APYs, and all the intricate steps involved. This makes these lucrative yield farming strategies, which leverage pooled funds and algorithmic movements, significantly more accessible to a wider audience.
And the difference from a simple yield aggregator, is often in the scope and the real-time routing. While a basic yield aggregator might just show you opportunities, a full DeFi aggregator, especially one like Matcha for trades, actively routes your transaction for the best price. That's a function yield aggregators typically don't do for swaps. For staking, maybe a platform like Plasma Finance would simplify finding the best staking pools across different chains, even if you're using a Tangem or Ledger device. This optimization directly translates to more profitable, more efficient use of capital for the end user. It minimizes the need for them to directly engage with each underlying service, which can be, let's face it, both time-consuming and pretty prone to human error.
Your enthusiasm for greater returns is, well, understandable. But that line of reasoning is concerning precisely because the pursuit of much greater rewards inherently involves much higher risks. We've seen this repeatedly. Lending protocols are statistically the most attacked type of DeFi protocols. This isn't just theoretical. The history of DeFi is absolutely replete with instances where the promise of high yield led to devastating, unforeseen losses. Liquid staking, for instance, while offering those additional returns you mentioned, introduces systemic risks that are often overlooked or downplayed. The depegging of Lido's Steth back in 2022, where its value significantly diverged from the Ethereum it was supposed to track, that demonstrated how market volatility and liquidity risks can spiral into mass liquidations and broader instability across these interconnected DeFi ecosystems.
Aggregators might make these opportunities easier to find, sure, but they don't insulate you from the underlying fragility. And furthermore, we absolutely have to talk about maximal extractable value, or MEV.
Yes, MEV.
Right. This is the profit that miners or validators can extract by reordering, censoring, or inserting transactions within a block, often directly at the cost of the end user. MEV activities are described as widespread in DeFi, with estimates of extracted value ranging from USD 0.4 billion up to USD 1.1 billion after Ethereum's proof-of-stake transition alone. This wealth is extracted through mechanisms like front-running sandwich attacks, which increase competition for block space and lead to higher execution costs for everyone. An aggregator doesn't inherently protect you from MEV. It simply submits your transaction, which can still be targeted by these sophisticated bots, whether you're using a hardware wallet on an L2 or not. It essentially just bundles you into a system where you are still vulnerable to these often opaque value extractions.
Okay, your concerns about the much higher risks are certainly valid, Denser. Very valid. But how do we reconcile that with the undeniable push for greater returns that drives so much of DeFi adoption? Especially when the convenience and the simplified access that aggregators provide, like you mentioned Plasma Finance, Matcha, are so crucial for broader adoption and innovation. They effectively remove the need for deep technical knowledge to engage in complex DeFi activities. This isn't just about ease of use. It broadens participation, it fosters a more vibrant ecosystem, and it seems like a clear path towards moving DeFi into the mainstream. It also directly answers that question of why someone shouldn't just directly use the underlying services. I mean, the sheer complexity of manually navigating all these disparate protocols is a huge barrier for most people. Moreover, some platforms are now offering DeFi simulators. These allow users to essentially play around with the dashboard with fake Ethereum or other tokens generated by the mock simulation.
Like paper trading.
Exactly, like paper trading for DeFi. This promotes responsible exploration, letting users understand the mechanics, build confidence before committing real assets, even when using a secure hardware wallet. Ultimately, these platforms emerged from a fundamental need to make DeFi practical, and they've been continually evolving to tackle exactly that challenge, improving the reputation, I'd argue, of the ecosystem by making it more approachable and hopefully safer for the average user.
That's a compelling argument for accessibility, advocate, it really is. But have you considered the sort of hidden costs of this simplified access, particularly when it comes to accountability and governance? This ease of use can create a false sense of security, masking some significant governance weaknesses and a profound lack of accountability that's inherent in much of DeFi. We've seen many DeFi projects suffer from really low voter participation rates in their DAOs, the decentralized autonomous organizations that are supposed to govern these protocols. Often it's under 10%. This means important decisions get dominated by just a few active participants, increasing the risk of poorly designed or even malicious proposals being passed without nearly enough scrutiny. And while the open source nature of DeFi software is often touted for transparency, the code is not always audited to robust standards, making it susceptible to vulnerabilities.
Furthermore, in a fully decentralized environment, it's often not fully clear which entity could be responsible for the certification of the protocol. This lack of clear accountability, combined with the anonymity or pseudonymity inherent to DeFi, makes tracing fraudulent activities not easy or impossible, leaving victims with severely limited recourse. So while an aggregator might make it easy to use a protocol, it does very little to address that fundamental question of who is responsible when things inevitably go wrong. And that's a critical aspect of safety for any investor, even one meticulously securing their assets with a hardware wallet.
Well, this debate certainly underscores the innovative strides made by DeFi aggregators in making decentralized finance more efficient, more user-friendly. Their ability to optimize trading conditions, reduce costs, particularly with these advancements in Layer 2 solutions like Arbitrum, it represents, I think, a clear and powerful path toward a more accessible and potentially prosperous digital economy. The tools like intelligent routing on Matcha, educational simulators, they exist for those who are diligent enough to navigate the space with both profitability and, I'd argue, a reasonable degree of safety, even while securing their assets with a hardware wallet.
Right. While the innovation is evident, our discussion has clearly highlighted the persistent and, frankly, evolving risks within DeFi. Aggregators, though convenient and effective at optimizing certain functions, ultimately operate within an ecosystem still grappling with fundamental security vulnerabilities, significant money laundering and terrorist financing risks, and that pervasive impact of maximal extractable value. The critical takeaway, for me, remains the imperative for users to deeply understand the underlying mechanics and risks, especially when dealing with self-custodial wallets, rather than relying solely on the promise of, simplified interfaces.
Yeah, this discussion really reveals that ongoing dynamic tension, doesn't it, between the revolutionary potential of DeFi and the inherent challenges of such a rapidly evolving, decentralized environment. It's almost a philosophical question at some level.
And let's be clear, the considerable risks involved. It's certainly not a simple yes or no answer, and perhaps that's the real takeaway here. And there's certainly more to explore in the material available to us on this topic.